I am here with Roudy from Viva Rays. We're actually on a regenerative farm for about a week, and I just met him, and we had an extremely fascinating conversation the other night. And I'm super excited to have you on here, Roudy, to share a little bit more of your wisdom.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So he's got a company called Viva Rays, which we're going to definitely talk about, but he's a wealth of knowledge in all sorts of things having to do with health, human performance, light, nature. And so my first question is, how did you get involved in this? Like where did interest come from to start generating Viva Rays and learning more about all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. It all came because of deep suffering, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, ever since I was a kid, I was born in Lebanon, and I struggled with headaches, agitation, inability to focus in the classroom. And all I wanted since I was a little kid, like intuitively, I've been like led to be outside.
Mm-hmm.
And I find myself like fascinated by nature. And to me, it was like a very conducive environment for learning. And I would be observing around and soaking things in. But my teachers did not like that. So they forced me back into the classroom, and they labeled me with ADHD. And I found myself in a prison under these artificial lights, completely unable to focus. And this completely disrupted my connection with myself and cut down my intuition. I was really struggling. And fast forward a few years, I kind of made it to engineering school. But by that time, I was completely disconnected from myself. And I start living like a night owl,
Uh-huh.
up and wired all night, completely disconnected and unable to focus during the day. And um, during that time, I was like 20 years old, but I was like dragging myself through the day as if I'm wearing a backpack full of rocks. I mean, it's not supposed to be that way. And I wasn't able to focus. I was struggling with like my relationships, and I was living literally to party at night, and I would wake up like extremely late, zero motivation. And after graduating from engineering school, I started working as an engineer in Africa for about 2 to 3 years. And to be honest, during that time, I was like a complete zombie. Like I didn't know what I wanted. I was just like driven by what other people around me wanted me to do, and I was doing my best to keep up with that image. But I couldn't keep up for long. I became like completely disoriented, and I got fired from my job as an engineer in Africa, and that was like a turning point.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like waking up the second day completely paralyzed with sadness and fatigue, and I was like staring at the ceiling, unable to move. And it like imagine being in a state where you can't even find a compelling reason to move. I was like literally suicidal at that point.
Sorry for laughing.
Yeah.
It's just the how you phrased that was funny.
Yeah, like literally like I was like frozen in bed and unable to move. And yeah, I was thinking about like seriously like suiciding, and the only thing I that came to my mind is like how would my mom feel if I was to suicide in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of like yeah like delayed me from like really acting on that. And I remember a few days later I stumbled upon a quote from Albert Einstein, and it said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, like it struck me like a bolt of lightning. Like something about those words, I looked at myself, I'm like, wow, like what have I been doing all these years? I've been like so numbed, and I've been like trying to live up to the standards of other people, building my career as an engineer, but I'm completely disconnected from my soul. So I took a moment and I made a big decision. I decided to leave my career as an engineer, and I no longer cared whether I'm I'm going to be successful or not, or whether other people are going to be frustrated at me for leaving my career or not. And I decided to travel into the unknown. I had no plans. And my only intention was to learn from different health experts so that I could improve my well being. And I packed my bags and I started this journey of traveling. And I was really excited and motivated and hopeful at the beginning. But within a matter of few months, I found myself in a rabbit hole with like different health gurus telling me different things. And it was all very confusing. I don't know about you, but I was in this scene of like, eat this diet, no that diet, take this supplement, no that supplement. And it was all too much. And my brain was very foggy. And I was like trying to do all these different diets. And no matter how many diets I tried, no matter how many supplements I took, I wasn't feeling any better. And in that moment, I blamed myself. I'm like, there must be something wrong with me. And I was thinking, like, why is it that difficult? Like, there must be an easier way. And I stumbled, one night I was like completely lost in the vast sea of the internet. And I stumbled upon an episode on YouTube by a neurosurgeon from the US. His name is Dr. Jack Cruz.
Oh,
You probably heard of him.
right.
Yeah. And the video was titled Artificial Light is Killing Us. And ironically, it was like 1 a.m. in the morning. I'm blasted with all this artificial light and watching a video telling me that artificial light is killing me.
How long ago was this?
7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And my brain was very foggy at the time. And everything he said literally flew over my head. But I woke up the second morning and there was one line that kept flashing into my consciousness. And the line said, you can't get healthy in the same light environment that made you sick.
Mm.
I was like, wow, like I was thinking, like, what does it mean, the light environment? And what he meant by this is all the lights that we're surrounded with when we are living an indoor lifestyle, from LED bulbs, screens, televisions, computers. And if you think about it, it's crazy. Like the average person is spending 12 to 16 hours indoors every day. So having tried all the different diets and supplements without long-lasting benefits, I decided like I don't have anything to lose. I took his words to heart, and I was sitting down with a friend, and I'm sharing with him my confusion about like how could I be in an environment that doesn't have a lot of artificial lights. And I had no idea at the time because I grew up in a city. I haven't been exploring any rural areas. And he recommended a website called Woofing. Have you heard of Woofing?
Wolfing?
Yeah.
Where you go stay at people's places and you kind of like work for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically you find like these farmers in
Right.
rural areas.
Yeah.
And you go volunteer on their farm. And in exchange for you working there, you stay there and you eat the food that they're growing. So I was like fascinated by the concept. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Did you do that?
Yeah.
I almost did it. I was going to go into like 5 days walk from the nearest road into the Himalayas. But my passport got denied. This is right when I closed my gyms. I was about to go do that. So yeah, I think it's woofing.com or woofing.net or something.
Woofing.com.
WOOOFING.
Yes. Highly recommended. I actually did this for 3 or 4 years. And everything I'm about to share with you about the secrets of light and how light could transform every aspect of your life happened during like experiencing light on those farms. So the first farm I went to was in Quebec, in northern Quebec, with indigenous people. I applied there and I got accepted, and I arrived to this like fascinating, beautiful area full of greenery, and I've never seen something like this. And I asked the farmer, like, where am I staying? And he said, we set up a tent for you. So for 6 weeks, I was staying with my tent and being exposed to natural sunlight during the day and fire and candlelight during the evening, because these guys did not have electric lighting. Mm-hmm. And within a matter of 3 days, something phenomenal happened. I literally start focusing, like the ADHD guy that I have, been carrying for 25 years, like disappeared. I remember this scene very well. I was in the field with the farmer, And I feel this hand tapping on my shoulder. And he's like, Rudy, wow, like I'm impressed with the level of focus you're showing on the fields. And the moment I heard that, like I felt like something traveling up my spine, like chills, literally. Because to me that was like the first time ever I hear somebody praising me at the level of my focus after 25 years of being told I'm an ADHD kid.
Mm-hmm.
That was massive. I mean, everything that happened on this farm completely transformed my paradigm and completely transformed the how I viewed myself. And I start sleeping shortly after the sunset to then wake up before the sunrise every single morning with no alarm clock, feeling rested, energized, and exhilarated with a sense of joy that I've never felt before. And remember, I'm a night owl guy. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
guy that can't sleep before like 3 a.m. and I wake up at 11 or 12 the following morning. So that's another thing that was like kind of like also like completely transformed over there. And my motivation was scaling to new heights. I had a lot of energy, and at first I didn't know what to do with that energy. Like I've never experienced something like this. And with all that, like I didn't change my diet. I wasn't taking any supplements over there. So there was something, miraculous happening. And at the time I couldn't explain what it was. And after this experience, I came back to the city, and within a matter of few weeks, I fell back into my old terrible routine of staying up late, scrolling on social media, blasted with artificial light, not being able to sleep well, and waking up feeling unrested, unmotivated. And I was like, whoa, how can I go from one extreme to the other? And that was like an eye opening to me. I was like, there's something about being on the farm that led me to that transformation. So I became very curious, and I started alternating between going to farms and cities. And every time I went to farms, I lived that lifestyle of getting a lot of sunlight during the day and no artificial light at night. Miraculously, I would start focusing again. I would tap into my creativity, my intuition would rise. I start reconnecting back to those moments when I was a kid, 3 4 years old, when I was like deeply intuitive and I could hear the silent rhythms of nature, and I could write poetry and feel inspired and like channel amazing ideas that I want to bring forth to the world. And then back to the city, and within a few weeks all of this is almost gone. And I would feel again like distracted, lacking energy, not sleeping well, and not feeling myself. So, being the curious soul that I am, I connected that to the video that I heard by Dr. Jack Cruz, and that started a 7 year journey or 8 year journey so far of investigating and learning about quantum biophysics, circadian biology, and how light fundamentally impact us as a human beings. And the fascinating thing is that the first thing that I stumbled upon is again like the equation by Albert Einstein, E = mc square, which you're probably familiar with that.
Right.
And everybody I speak with is very familiar with the law of relativity, E = mc square. And as an engineer, I learned this equation pretty much like the first year in my engineering school. But I have never connected how this equation fundamentally describes how light becomes matter,
Right.
and the relationship the relationship between light and our biology. So for the first time, I realized E is light, M is matter, just like our bodies and everything around us, including the earth, and C is speed. So while it might seem that it's coming out of a science fiction movie, what this equation means is that light and matter are exactly the same thing. And when light slows down, it turns into matter.
Mm-hmm.
So when light slows down, it turns into matter. And this means that we are light beings. And everything around us in this moment is but light that is vibrating at a lower speed. And the light that is entering our eyes is controlling the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we act, is influencing how well we sleep, how energized we feel when we wake up, which mood we are in, how much focus we have. And this is fundamentally because when light enters the eyes, it turns into electricity that activate our inner pharmacy so that we can produce all the neurotransmitters and hormones that control our metabolism, our thinking, our feelings, and therefore our action.
Yeah, it's the information that goes in. And when you think about hormones, neurotransmitters, it's basically responsible for our motivations and our actions. And so your entire life is essential. Your entire life, I called life light, but your entire life is essentially influenced by the light that you're getting.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about it, one thing that happened on the farm is, beside resetting my circadian clock and having a proper rhythm that was allowing me to wake up first thing in the morning without an alarm clock, feeling energized, and then sleeping and going to bed shortly after the sunset, I think what happened then is that finally I was getting nature's impulse and electricity that activated my inner resourcefulness, so that finally I have more dopamine, more serotonin, and that influenced the way I think about myself. And in a way, light is creating reality, and the light that is entering our eyes is constantly influencing the way we look at ourselves, our self-image, and the way we perceive the world around us. And for 20 years or so, my self-image and the way I perceived the world was lagging the resourcefulness. I did not have enough dopamine in my system. I did not have enough serotonin, and I did not dare to view myself outside of the lens of ADHD, depressed, chronically fatigued guy. And finally, like on the farm, this interaction with light in the proper way and being in nature shook my old paradigm and helped me to start building a new paradigm where I start viewing myself as a focused guy, motivated, being able to sleep well, waking up energetic. Like the one thing I remember is I have never ever been able to wake up with a smile on my face. And on the farm, every single day I wake up and like this massive smile springing out of my tent, wanting to be of service and being excited about the day. And I think this is what life is about. When this excitement to serve is gone, when this desire to be of service is gone, I think everything is gone.
Right. We'll get to light more in a second. I do want to just back up before we move off the topic of woofing. If you think about these farmers or these people that own the land that you stayed with, what would you say is the most profound thing that you learned from one of them?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. The first thing I was learning, I was observing how they live. And they live a very simple life. I mean, I saw like the quality of light in their eyes was like shining all the time. And I recalled all the health gurus and the different summits I've been in, and I've never seen that quality of light in their eyes. And I start thinking like, wow, like why is that? And what I observed is that all those farmers, they wake up before the sunrise naturally. They spend most of their day outside. They are in touch with the earth, so they are working with the earth. They're probably barefoot and grounded. They are eating at a similar time every day, their breakfast, their lunch, and their dinner. And they eat their biggest meal first thing in the morning, and they eat a much smaller meal at night. And they're, they're, they fast when the sun is down, because there's no artificial lighting around us that is triggering their hunger hormone, ghrelin, and suppressing their leptin hormone, their hormone of satiety, leptin. So technically, they fast at night, they eat during the day, they are exposed to a lot of natural light during the day, they work with the earth and they are grounded, and they're not exposed to any artificial lights after the sunset. So if you think about it, the one thing I learned about farmers is that they live a balanced rhythmic lifestyle that is in alignment with the balanced rhythm of Mother Nature. And that drives all of their behavior and all of their actions.
Amazing. You mentioned eating, nighttime, some hormones. Could we get into that a little bit?
Yeah, so if you think about it, when you first, light is information that drives all of your hormones. And evolutionary, when you wake up first thing in the morning, when the sun is rising and the blue light is rising in your environment, that sends a signal to your brain to increase your hunger level, ghrelin, and to suppress your satiety hormone, leptin. And that makes so much sense because that drives your behavior to go hunt and forage. And without that, you'll be dead. But the tragedy of today's world is that we are constantly surrounded by artificial blue light after the sunset. In nature, there's no such a thing. You'll be surprised when you go camping or when you go live with farmers who are living in alignment with nature. The moment the sun sets, it becomes very dark outside. And that sends a signal to your body that the day is ending. And it's no longer time for taking action. It's no longer time to eat. It's time to rest, repair, and rejuvenate. And when you are in a city living in complete misalignment with light and dark cycles, you get that light in your eyes, and it subconsciously suppresses the satiety hormone, leptin, and it triggers the production of the ghrelin, of the hormone of hunger, ghrelin. And out of a sudden, you find yourself in front of the fridge, munching on carbs, sugars, whatever it may be. And I've met so many people, and including myself back in the days, where I was trying to use my willpower to control my hunger at night. And I failed again and again and again. And I blamed it at myself. And I went into this like guilt tripping cycle of like eating at night and feeling really bad the second day, and then guilt tripping myself about doing this, and kind of created this very toxic relationship with food. But the reality is it's not you that you're wrong, or like the problem is not in you. The problem is in your environment. When you are in an environment that is making you sick or that is making you act out of alignment with who you are, then it becomes much more difficult to make better decisions that will help you to become a better human being.
That's so important. We're using willpower a lot where we just tell people what to do, and that doesn't work with almost everything. What to eat, when to eat, what to do, whether to work out, changing the environment so that it's impacting what your body's naturally motivated to do is really what's going to drive behavior change. And it should always feel like you're just in flow, like your body is desiring and craving this activity. Thank you for answering that. What about, so like you mentioned depression and ADHD. How is light influencing that? Because this is something that, again, a lot of people are experiencing. And even though they have a general knowledge to not be depressed, like I don't think that anybody necessarily likes being depressed, but that's just how they feel. And they're kind of in this cycle where they don't know how to not feel depressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And our environment play a fundamental role in this, because when we are in nature, when we are living in an environment that is nourishing to us, we get all the frequencies of light that allow us to build up our neurotransmitters that make us feel good. For example, when we wake up first thing in the morning and we go outside, the light entering our eyes convert amino acids in the eye called tryptophan into serotonin, which also becomes melatonin, the sleep hormone, and tyrosine into dopamine. Now, dopamine is a miraculous molecule that allows us to think outside of the box. It allows us to sit down and pay attention. And it's the molecule that allows us to go after what we really want in life. It's the motivation molecule. When we are lacking motivation, when we are lacking focus to go after what we really want in life, most often we have a very low dopamine in our system. And interestingly enough, when we view artificial light after the sunset, there's a researcher, his name is Dr. Samer Hittar, he's a circadian biologist, and he published many papers showing that viewing artificial blue and green light after the sunset, even very little amounts of it, activate an area in the brain called the hibinula, known as the disappointment center. And then we're much more likely to wake up the second day with much less dopamine in our system, feeling unsatisfied and lacking the motivation to go after what we really want in life. And it suppresses our cognition and our memory and our ability to sit down and pay attention. And what's the one thing that most of my friends today who are in my age living in cities struggling with? Lack of attention. Everybody is so distracted. Everybody has an idea about what they want in life, but they are constantly dragged left and right, unable to focus. And without focus, you probably agree. I know you're a pretty focused guy. Without focus, you can't achieve anything in life. You could have an idea about what you want, but if you don't have the focus to, you know, shut down all the distraction, all the noise, all the different projects and the shiny objects around you, to stay, directional about what you really want to achieve, it's very hard to achieve anything. And also serotonin is the hormone that allow you to feel a sense of alignment with self and a sense of satisfaction with who you are without pursuing anything outside of you. And serotonin is tied to sunlight exposure and also is tied to darkness because serotonin becomes melatonin and melatonin becomes serotonin.
Right.
So when you expose yourself to artificial light at night, this light suppresses your sleep hormone melatonin, and then you wake up the second day with much less melatonin in your system that could convert back again to serotonin. So all of which makes you unfocused, depressed, and unable to sit down and pay attention to what's important to you as a human being.
I really like that you defined dopamine and serotonin by like unmotivated, unfocused, distracted, sense of self. Because normally when we hear those hormones, we just hear words like happiness and joy. And that's kind of undefinable because everybody's happiness is different. But having a unwavering sense of satisfaction of self is a much more tangible description of what these hormones do.
Yes.
And I really invite everybody to go back and re-listen to that because that was extremely profound. You mentioned frequencies of light. So people might not understand or comprehend the difference between sunlight and the light indoors, whether it's from our screens or our lamps. So how would you explain to somebody what the difference is there?
Yeah, it's massively different. So sunlight, when you view sunlight, you're viewing like white light, but this white light is composed of a wide range of frequencies, um, ranging from the visible frequencies that you can see in the rainbow, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red light, as well as invisible frequencies of UV light and infrared light. And UV and infrared are on the opposite side of the spectrum. So UV is ultraviolet light, and it's high energy, low wavelength, short wavelength frequency. Whereas infrared is on the opposite side, and we experience infrared as heat when you are in a sauna or you're around a fire. That heat that comes from the fire or from the sun comes in the form of infrared light. And sunlight is very symmetrical and very balanced. What this means is when you wake up first thing in the morning, you go outside, slowly the high frequency light from UV, blue, and green start ramping up. And that's because when the sun is low on the horizon, these low wavelength, high frequency light is filtered out by the atmosphere. And it's not until the sun is slowly rising at a 10 degree, 15 degree, that those colors become more prominent in our environment. And blue and green light are absolutely essential because they trigger they are captured by photoreceptors in the eyes called melanopsin that sends a signal to the hypothalamus in the brain, telling our brain and our body that the day is starting. And in this moment, the brain sends a signal to the adrenal gland to produce cortisol and adrenaline. And in a sense, cortisol is known as the stress hormone, but it's actually purposeful at the right time of the day. And it becomes purposeless and damaging when it's secreted at the wrong time of the day. So you want that healthy rise of cortisol first thing in the morning because it's this spike of cortisol that is going to allow you to feel focused, energized, and ready to tackle the day. It's the most efficient and effective cup of coffee that nature, has gifted us via viewing sunlight. On the opposite side of that, when you view blue light from artificial light after the sunset, you are going to increase your cortisol at the wrong time of the day because you're not supposed to have cortisol at night.
Mm-hmm.
Cortisol and melatonin cannot coexist. Cortisol and growth hormone can't coexist. So anytime you have that spike of cortisol after the sunset, it's gonna make you agitated, wired, and stimulated, wanting to do things at a time when you're really supposed to be cleaning yourself, repairing, and rejuvenating so that you can wake up with the energy that you need to tackle the day. So with sunlight, sunlight is balanced and proportionate. So anytime we are exposed to blue light from the sun, it's always balanced and proportionate with the polar opposite, yellow, orange, and red light. And we have never ever in evolution been exposed to blue light in isolation from those colors. Now, why is that a very important point? Because blue light in nature is degenerative. And this doesn't mean that blue light is bad. What we mean by degenerative is that it increases oxidative stress. But if you think about it, exercise also increases oxidative stress. And that is not necessarily something bad because when you exercise and then you rest, this this increase in oxidative stress is going to trigger your immune system and is going to trigger your body to produce antioxidant, and it makes you more resilient, and it makes you much less likely to become sick. But what happens if you exercise 24-hour 7 without resting? Most probably you're going to make yourself sick.
Right. You're overtrained.
Yes,
Too much
because
stress.
exactly, because you're missing on that period of time that will allow you to clean off that inflammation and oxidative stress. And the problem with artificial lighting is that it's spiking in, if it has a very narrow spike in blue light that's very inflammatory, and it's lagging the other regenerative colors and frequencies that balance out that blue light.
When you say narrow spike, what do you mean by that? Because I know you have a meter and
Yeah.
then there might be a narrow spike, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So blue light ranges between 400 to 500 nanometer in frequency, and you could imagine it as like a big range, starting at blue purple and ending at blue turquoise, and you have everything in between. And this is the blue light that we get from sunlight. It's full spectrum blue light. When you measure the frequency coming from an LED bulb or a screen, it has no blue purple and it has no blue turquoise. It's spiking at blue light at 455 nanometer. And this is the narrow spike that I'm referring to, which has been studied and has been shown to be very degenerative and inflammatory. It increases inflammation and oxidative stress in the mitochondria. And therefore, this is one of the reasons why most people sitting under those artificial lights start feeling eye strain, headaches, agitation, and eye fatigue.
So my understanding of that is because the lights from our screens or the lights from our lights are optimized for seeing, and you just need that narrow range for that to happen. Is there another explanation that you come across? It might be money motivated as well. It might just be too expensive to, and with no motivation from corporations to make it more harmonious to humans. But why is it that you would assume that lights are designed to be in that narrow range as opposed to a fuller spectrum.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out the answer for 5 years now, interacting with different manufacturers. I would say fundamentally, people lack the awareness about how light shapes and molds every aspect of our life. Most people I have spoken with, they think of light as something superficial that makes vision possible, something that they take for granted, that something you can turn on and off,
Right.
right? And the reality is, it wasn't until the 1970s that science started recognizing and viewing light as something beyond vision, and understanding that vision is only a small aspect to the light that is entering our eyes. And science started, recognizing that light is programming our endocrine system, our nervous system, and our circadian system. And most people I talk to today, they haven't caught up to the importance of light on our biology. They still think about light as, something very superficial that you turn on and off, and that has no impact on your health. So many of the manufacturers that I have been speaking with, they get fascinated when I start explaining to them about the importance of light. But just like in everything, as human beings, we tend to view things from a very limited point of view and perspective. It's hard for us to zoom out and perceive the bigger image of things. We like to dissect things. We like to be efficient, and we like to save, and we think that we can outsmart nature in a way. And light is just another example how it's absolutely impossible to outsmart nature. And why is that? Because every element in nature is composed of polar opposites, forces of opposite expressions that interchange and balance. And that creates the balance effect that we experience in nature, that is nourishing, and that drives our biology in a very balanced way. Now, when we move away from that and we try to outsmart nature, we find ourselves with systems that are lagging that symmetry and that balance. And we underestimate how much this lack of balance literally wreaks havoc all of our biology. Like every cell in our body is looking for that balance. And when we bring one element and we miss the other element, we completely put ourselves out of whack. And in this scenario, we we used blue light, for instance, because we thought it's energy efficient, but we kept the polar opposite of blue light outside of the equation, and therefore blue light became bad. And that's one thing you and I spoke about today. You hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, blue light is bad." The reality is, blue light is not good nor bad. There's nothing in nature that is good or bad, and everything is relative. And in the case of blue light, its effect on us will depend on the time of the day we're exposing ourselves to it. And it will also depend on whether or not it's balanced and proportionate with the other frequencies of colors. So, as a practical example, viewing blue light first thing in the morning is going to be really good because it's going to tune your circadian biology, and it's going to boost your mood and boost your energy levels. However, viewing that same blue light after the sunset is going to be really bad because it's going to increase your stress hormone at the wrong time of the day, is going to increase your hunger level, is going to spike your blood glucose level up and makes you hungry and want to eat and engage in behaviors that are completely disruptive and not and behaviors that you're not meant to engage in after the sunset, when your body is supposed to prepare for restful night's sleep so that you can clean your brain, clean your heart, clean your organs, and stay, like a light-headed, clear person. Because if constantly you're not cleaning yourself at night, like people tell me, like I'm constantly feeling foggy. I'm not able to think clearly. I mean, how do we expect to think clearly and to be in alignment with our soul and to be able to hear that like silent whispering of the soul, if we're constantly like not clean, if the brain is not clean and is full of inflammation, and we're not using every night to soak that darkness so that we can clean ourselves, it's impossible to listen to that calling, or to be able to focus, or to be able to to hear that silent whispering of the soul.
That was beautifully explained. It was light is my favorite topic. I like that you said light-headed and soak that darkness. Um, and the blue light spectrum, there's also a possibility that it's motivated from a place where they, meaning the people that are actually designing this, are motivated to control a population and have them be sick and unmotivated because it makes them easier to manipulate.
Yes, absolutely. And blue light, the moment you interact with the 455 nanometer frequency, what instantly happens, your dopamine goes up, and then it crashes way below baseline. And that keeps you wanting more.
Mm.
And that keeps you wanting more and more and more. And that makes you a more addicted person, and a person who's much more likely to engage in behaviors like watching porn, gambling, eating sugar, scrolling on social media mindlessly for hours. You know, have you ever had a time when you're going to do something specific on social media, like respond to one message,
Right.
and then after 5 minutes, you're finding yourself like
5 minutes.
watching like
After
watching
45
videos.
minutes.
Yeah, like it's crazy. So it's designed to do so. And the sad truth is, I have a friend. He's designing computers called daylight computers, and they are designed for people to be able to work outside with their computers, and to use that natural lighting and the reflection of the on the screen, so that you could really be
Awesome.
you could see your screen very clearly. And he shared with me a few stories of him being in California, talking to different companies and manufacturers of computers, and sharing with them how important for him it is to produce screens that are healthy and that they emit a nourishing frequency of light. And people were laughing, like the people engage in the production of those screens, they were laughing at him, saying, dude, like these screens are designed to for people to, you know, to make people want more, and they're designed to make people wanting to stick to their computers scrolling for hours mindlessly, because out of a sudden you become a person who can't think for themselves, and someone who can't think outside of the box, and therefore you're much more likely to consume purposeless products. And we've all seen, you know, companies like Coca-Cola and great companies like this making a lot of money out of, you know, a population that can't think for itself, and a population that can't see the truth of why a product like Coca-Cola is extremely harmful and destructive to our health.
I'm so happy we went there because that's it. They're designed for us to be addicted. Even workaholics that are working till 3 a.m. And there's this thing in the back of the head, I would just work better at night. Well, it's because you're working on a screen that you're just addicted to working. Working is an addiction as well. And what you just said about the computers, and hopefully everybody's realizing that the people that we're buying our devices from don't necessarily have the same agenda as us. They don't care about our health. We should be caring about our health. Their agenda, they have a right to as well. Their agenda is to keep you on their devices, is to keep you addicted, to keep you purchasing, to keep you distracted from finding out information like what is on this podcast, that they should be outside as opposed to on the devices. And this is similar, when you were talking about it, this is similar to cigarette companies determining and marketing towards kids, even though kids aren't supposed to be smoking before 18 or 21, whatever the legal age is, years old. What they start realizing as a company is that, well, if they don't get addicted to our product before 18 years old, they're very unlikely to continue on with their product. So their main mission is to get people addicted before they're 18. So they start marketing to kids. They start speaking the kids' language. They start subtly, like as an adult, you don't realize it. The colors, the characters in the commercials are all marketed towards kids. And back to the daylight computers, I always go outside and work because you're mentioning the light spectrum not being full. So the last few houses I've had, like as long as I can remember, I've always had a desk outside, usually where I can ground my feet, and then also the sun. And it is a struggle to be able to see the screen. I usually take off my shirt and like kind of wrap my entire screen with my shirt so that I can create some sort of shadow on the screen. If I have dust on my screen, it's a pain. And I'm super happy to hear that somebody's creating something that will be easier to use outside. And I'm also not surprised that the other manufacturers are laughing him out of the room, because that's what people have to deal with.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And one point also is you don't need to be in direct sunlight to get the benefits. So if you're wanting to set up your office outside, you could find a shady area and you're still getting all the full spectrum sunlight in your eyes. And in fact, if you are like in an environment like where we are on this beautiful regenerative farm, all the green trees around reflect infrared from the sun, and makes it even increase the intensity of infrared. And infrared is a very powerful frequency. Now, I am aware that today we're starting also to isolate narrow spike and red lights and narrow spike and infrareds, because we're seeing a lot of benefits to the skin and to the mitochondria. However, I'm kind of opposed to that, because if you look at nature, everything in nature is composed of balanced opposite forces that interchange in balance. And you have no such a thing like a narrow spike in red or narrow spike in infrared. It kind of reminds me of like foods and whole foods, and how we start dissecting whole foods into this mineral and that vitamin, and take this or take that.
Right, it's
and
a medicine.
Yes, indeed. So with light, infrared and red light are very powerful colors because they're very regenerative. And in fact, we have two types of melatonin that our body secretes. One is circulatory melatonin, and that's the melatonin that we produce after, not we produce, but that the pineal gland release after the sunset to tell our body that the day is ending, so that we can activate all of the programs that allow us to clean ourselves at night. And this melatonin is actually produced in morning sunlight via when UVA enters the eyes, tryptophan is converted into serotonin and melatonin. And this melatonin gets stored in the pineal gland, and it's only released after the sunset when we stop exposing our eyes to artificial lights. And this melatonin signal is the most profound signal because it activates autophagy, apoptosis, mitophagy, and all of these are fancy terms for describing the ability of the cell to repair and to get rid of the old cells and replace them with new cells. And same for mitochondria. And when the mitochondria is not able to undergo proper mitophagy, that's when actually we start losing mitochondrial efficiency. And every chronic disease I know about is actually tied to dysfunctional mitochondria. Dr. Douglas Wallace from the University of Washington, he actually revolutionized our understanding, because up until, I don't know, 15 years from now, we've constantly thought about every disease originating in the nuclear genome. But Dr. Douglas Wallace was the first to show and describe how most of our chronic diseases are originating in the mitochondrial genome. But now I want to bring it back into the second type of melatonin, which very few people know about. It's locally produced melatonin, and it's produced during the day in response to sunlight, particularly full spectrum red and infrared light. And this melatonin has nothing to do with sleep. It's produced within the membrane of every cell to allow the cell to get rid of oxidative stress and inflammation on site. So just by being outside and setting your office outside, even if you are in the shade, you're around a lot of trees, a lot of infrared, full spectrum infrared is being reflected into your body, you're actually producing the most powerful antioxidant in nature. Melatonin is literally the most powerful antioxidant. It's known that like an antioxidant from food is could clean off 1 to 2 free radicals, versus melatonin is being able to clean off 5 to 10 free radicals per molecule. So that's like 5 to 10 times more powerful than any antioxidant that we get from food.
Yeah, I mean, fruit is which is where a lot of antioxidants are from, is essentially stored sunlight, and and so that's where the antioxidants are coming from. And melatonin is essentially, mela means dark, so it's absorbing light. Melatonin, that word means melanin tonic. So mela, dark, tonic. It's light because dark absorbs light. It's the light tonic. And I just want to repeat some things because they're important to me and might be important to the people witnessing this. When you're in the shade, there's actually more light than even if you're inside with all the lights on. Is that correct?
Oh man. Like when you are in an indoor room, you're probably at 100 lux of brightness. Compared to outside, you're at 100,000 lux of brightness. And even when you are in a shade, you're probably something between 20,000 to 50,000 lux. So that's massive. That's probably like 100 to 1,000 times brighter than when you are inside. And when you are inside in 100 lux during the day, literally your body is thinking it's almost nighttime, and every part of your body, every cell becomes light hungry. It start craving light because we are beings of light. And what happens, we spend our days in environments that are not bright and that are not providing us with full spectrum sunlight, and we become light hungry to the point where we start craving light at night when we're supposed to be in full darkness. And I shared this with you, but it's crazy. Our indoor environments at night are at least 100 to 1,000 times brighter than a full moon. And a full moon is the brighter night of the month. So that's, if you think about it, we're almost living upside down. We're getting very bright nights and very dim days. And throughout evolution, for thousands and thousands of years, we are designed to get bright mornings and dark nights. And this is no longer happening.
So just to zoom in on this a little bit, what Roudy just said was that indoors is 100 lux, outdoors is 100,000. Even when you're like in the shade, you're at like 30 to 50,000. And I just want everybody to realize what that implies. What that implies to me is that indoors, the light is so narrow and optimized primarily just to see, that where is this missing 99,900 lux? Like, what is in there? There's a lot of information within the light that goes beyond our ability to just see things. And that's the information that is telling our body how to be, how to act, what to be motivated for, what to crave, what to focus on. And all that information is missing when we're indoors, even with light. If you think about a plant, all the plants need to be in some proximity to a window, unless they have special full spectrum lights around them. It's the same thing with us. If we're just sitting on our couch all day or in front of our computer at a desk, even the window is breaking the light as well. But we must be outside where this light is, not to be able to see things, but to get the information from that.
And to highlight something you said about plants, how do you make a plant grow really faster and shorten its life cycle? You put it under blue light.
Right.
Literally, it shortens its life cycle.
Because it grows tall, right?
It grows taller, but it dies faster. And that ties to aging. The plant is aging a lot faster when it's under blue light all the time. And it's not getting also that darkness that it needs. And it ties to many studies showing how in developed countries like the US, Japan, and China, teenagers are getting their period uh, much faster.
Earlier.
No, actually, it's much earlier. Yes. So basically, it ties to the lack of artificial light and the lack of melatonin production in their system, which is almost making them age faster. It's shortening their life cycle. Everything is happening faster for them.
Right. It's literally shortening their childhood. And
Yeah.
their childhood is when everything's developing.
Yeah.
And so it's shortening the developmental phase of the women,
Yeah.
putting them right into adulthood at like six. I mean, we're talking about like 6 years old, 5 years old. Girls are starting to have their periods.
Yeah. Indeed, it's scary. Yeah. And that ties to artificial light exposure at night.
Thank you for putting that into context.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about light forever. Let's talk about these glasses because I went to your website for a minute, like literally, I would say even like 20 seconds. This is before I knew you. I knew that you were going to be in the same community that I was in, and I was just clicking around at people. I think I saw you on a Zoom, and I was like, that guy looks interesting. What's he up to? And I clicked, and the first thing I saw was the frames were made from natural materials. And then I literally was like, okay, that's all I need to know. Like, I don't need to research whether I like this or not. Like, this is in alignment. And so I clicked off the site. Let's talk about these Viva Rays, because the difference between this and a lot of other companies on the market is huge. And let's start with the frame, and then we can get into what the actual lenses are doing for people.
Yeah. So as I shared, like I did not start Viva Rays because I was researching words that are gaining attention by the population, and I'm like, oh, blue light blocking glasses. I'm gonna go after.
I think
that.
that's apparent. Yeah.
It is. It's like it's sadly apparent. The reason why I started Viva Rays is because, as I shared, I had this transformational experience on that farm, and that led me to 3 or 4 years of going from one farm to another. And during those 4 years, I was living with so many indigenous people in Canada and learning about biodynamic farming and permaculture. And I was really like, that allowed me really to slow down and understand that we live in a rhythmic universe that is driven by cycles. We have a daily cycle called the circadian cycle when it comes to sleeping and waking up. We have an infradian cycle that ties to the seasons. And when you start observing how nature operates from one season to another, everything is purposeful. So, with that understanding, the last thing I wanted is to produce a product that actually destroy Mother Nature. And I was feeling very resistant to the idea because I did not feel confident enough that I could produce something that is not destructive and that utilizes materials that are biodegradable and that do not destroy the elements of Mother Nature. And my sister played a massive role in decreasing my resistance towards starting that company, because technically I made the frames for myself, and after buying so many different frames from different companies, I wasn't experiencing the results that I wanted. And then I decided to dive deep and make something for myself, and I did that. And I started meeting a lot of friends during my travels. At the time, I was farming a lot. I was doing a lot of Vipassana meditation. And in Vipassana, I would meet so many people, and I would hear their stories about their health struggles. And in the back of my mind, I'm hearing all these different effects of like digestive issues, skin issues, inability to sleep, depression, anxiety. But the one cause that I'm hearing based on their lifestyle and what they're sharing with me is a complete disrupted circadian rhythm due to disrupted light exposure. So I started making these glasses for those people and saying, hey, listen, all you need to do is get morning sunlight, get sunlight breaks during the day, every 2 hours or so. And then after the sunset, make sure to block artificial light by using the glasses, which I'm going to explain a little bit more about. And then I start seeing, wow, like everybody was reporting back to me within 3 to 5 days that they're experiencing phenomenal transformations. And they were like, what is that? And to me, at that point, I was sharing these stories with my sister, and my sister was like, you need to share this with the world. You need to start a company. And to me, at that time, I was completely plugged out of the system. I did not have a bank account. I did not have a phone. I did not have a computer. And I was so resistant to the idea of starting a company that could potentially produce a product that is destructive to the earth and to the future generations. So my sister took that on and she did a lot of research. And it's very challenging because when you want to launch a product that is different from everybody else in the term of like the materials that you want to use, it requires not only a lot of research, but also a lot of pushing so that the manufacturers are motivated to do something different from the hundred thousands of mechanically produced products that they produce without thinking about. So thanks to my sister, she convinced me, and we took that route, and we started with pursuing an FSC certification, which means it's a certification that makes sure that the wooden frames we're using are coming from sustainably harvested forestry. And then we expanded our product lines to biological acetate that is made from 100% biodegradable plant bio-based material, which means if you put this frame for a year or so in the ground, it's gonna biodegrade. So yeah, and also our lenses are produced in a lab in Canada that operates on solar and geothermal energy. And one of the reasons also I love working with these guys is that they are a family-owned business, small business that they like supporting, local people around them and so on. So yeah, all these principles are important to us.
Yes, super important. I'm involved with companies that are in the plastic-free packaging initiative as well. And so you've got what kind of lenses do you have for people and how do they work?
Yeah, so the lenses we're wearing right now is the daytime blue light harmonizer. And probably most people are familiar with the concept blue blocking.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's extremely problematic to block blue light during the day. And today we're coming to a place where we're thinking blue light is bad. Let's eliminate it. And it's manifesting in different ways that are completely dysfunctional. One way it's manifesting is most people are wearing glasses during the day that block 100% of the blue light at this spike that we spoke about, the 455 nanometer. However, the problem with that is it's a reductionist approach. You're eliminating a frequency of color that you evolved around for thousands of years, and that is purposeful. It has a specific purpose to tell your brain that it's daytime. And when you block 100% of the blue light at 455 nanometer, you wipe out a lot of the blue turquoise at 480 nanometer, which is the frequency that the photoreceptors in our eyes are most sensitive to tell the brain that it's daytime. And as a consequence, this start creating a circadian disruption, and it's decreasing your energy levels during the day when you're supposed to have high energy levels. So as a solution for this, we came up with a daytime frame, which is a blue light harmonizer that is specifically designed to decrease the sharpness of that 455 inflammatory frequency in the blue and make it more balanced and proportionate with the green and with the red light.
So it's reducing that spike that we were talking about. It's just chopping off top of it.
Yes, it's reducing it in a strategic way to make it aligned and proportionate with the green and with the red.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I've heard some other manufacturers of blue blockers essentially say that all the film used on all of the blue blocking glasses are all of the same, and that we're not really buying the technology of the actual lens, that we're just buying the technology of the style of the glass. I guess that's not technology. We're buying the style of the glass. But what you're saying is that there is intentional technology in your blue harmonizers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you use a dye to try to get to a certain color, even when you have two different orange lenses, and I've seen this again and again and again on my mirror, one could be operating operationally in a very different way than the other one. Most of them are definitely blocking some blue light, but to which extent is going to be very different. What I've seen again and again is that there's something that I like to call light leakage. And this happens when you have spikes of light across the spectrum leaking through the glasses. 5% here, 10% there, 15% here. And this happens all the time when I'm testing, different orange tinted glasses or red tinted glasses. The color may look the same, but the way the lens is actually functioning could be very different.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's still letting in leaks of spikes, which is then disruptive, just as disruptive.
It's not ideal.
Right.
Yeah.
So I see these glasses I have on, they look really cool. They're magnetic, right?
Yes. So basically, we came with a concept called the 3-in-1. So we have our daytime lenses that we're wearing right now. I have the clips here.
Oh, you got them on too.
You have yours there.
Oh, nice.
So these are the daytime. You wear these only indoors when you are exposed to artificial lighting. Like right now, you and I, we're sitting here. We have all these artificial lights around us. We're wearing the daytime. When we go outside, nothing. We remove this so that we can get undisrupted, unfiltered sunlight in our eyes. After the sunset, when we witness the sunset, which I highly recommend for everybody watching, it subconsciously sends a signal to our nervous system telling us that the day is ending. So we start unwinding, right? And the body start preparing its inner pharmacy for making space for the right hormones so that we can have restful night's sleep. So we don't want to disrupt the quality of this light information and its accuracy, because light is information and it's instructing our bodies what to do and when to do what. So when we come back home and we're exposed to that second sun from our LED lights, it literally confuses our brain again into thinking it's daytime and completely disrupt our internal
Second
clocks.
sunned. I like that.
Yeah, the second alien sun. And to avoid the second sun, then you could clip on the evening lenses. Simply, you could clip it on the base frame, like we just did.
Yeah, it was super easy.
And these are specifically designed to filter 100% of the blue and a specific portion of the highest frequency green to reach a color temperature of 1500 to 1600 kelvins, which is the color temperature of the bonfire. And why is that? Because for thousands of years, our ancestors have been exposed to candle and firelight after the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably can relate. Anytime you're around a fire, you feel relaxed. You have your nervous system winds down, yet you have enough energy to dance, cook, and socialize with your friends. And that's exactly what differs the evening lenses from the nighttime lenses. The nighttime lenses, you're supposed to wear them 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime. And those filter out 100% of the blue and the green, and they decrease the brightness by 20 times to tell the brain that it's completely dark outside and maximize melatonin and growth hormone production. And you could think of those as the end of the bonfire when the wood turns into amber coil. Right, by this time, you feel cozy and ready for bed. You no longer want to socialize and dance and cook.
Mm-hmm. And you don't just have glasses that add on, right? You've got a lot of other glasses that are specific to one range. I have a question though. So if we have just your blue harmonizer glasses,
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that question. Your orange glasses, so this orange works with the blue harmonizers on top of it?
Yeah.
Is there a difference between this orange and like the glasses that you have that are specifically orange?
No, it's the same. Yeah.
Oh, because we're just blocking light.
Yeah.
And so it's just not getting through. If you do that, if you put the orange on top of the yellow,
it's not going to change the way the light
change.
is filtered. No.
Because the yellow doesn't filter anything extra.
Yes.
See, I was just curious about that. We figured that out together. Amazing. So what's your favorite part of having this company, Viva Rays?
My favorite part is that I get to help people to come back to nature and to live in alignment with nature's light and dark cycles, and therefore find a balance and aligned point within themselves. I always tell people, this is not about the product. The least thing I want is somebody to buy these glasses and think that they are the magic pill fixing all of their problems. This is more so about a lifestyle and about coming back to alignment with nature. And therefore, in order to maximize the health benefits of these glasses, it's very important that you start making lifestyle changes. And I want you to wake up first thing in the morning, and instead of looking at your phone or turning on the artificial lights in your house, I want you to start getting into the habit of going outside, barefoot, ideally, so that you're getting the electrons from the earth, the grounding effect, and then facing east and watching the sunrise. And I want you to get into the habit of getting more sun breaks during the day, ideally thinking about building your melanin by exposing yourself to UVB light, which is not always present. So UVB, depending on where you are on Earth and on the time of the season, it's probably going to be present anytime between like 11 and 2 p.m. And that's when you can build up your melanin. And you spoke about melanin a little bit, but yeah, melanin is the darkest substance in this universe. And what this means is that melanin absorbs all frequencies of light. And when you have more melanin in your body, then you're able to capture and store and assimilate and make use of light energy so that your cells can use that energy rather than relying on food and other sources of energy all the time. So it's absolutely essential to find a way to, suntan during the day and build your melanin. And again, my absolute favorite thing about Viva Rays is that I get to touch people in a way that is beyond only the product, in a way that I could impact them and inspire them to make lifestyle choices that will help them to come to that place in themselves that is always there for them, but that they have not touched yet. And that is that place that I was able to touch on that farm that has been always there for me, but that I've been so distracted from.
I really like that we have these clip-ons. I've actually never seen them before, but it actually makes so much sense. Like, why do we need a whole new pair of glasses if we're never going to need to use the yellow ones at night? We can just add on the orange things on top of the yellow ones, and it's just more efficient. Also keeps them kind of all together. What about a discount for my audience? Can we hook that up?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll speak with my team. We can have a discount. What kind of code? Like we need a name for your code.
Take care of that right now, right? Can we just use raw?
Raw?
Yeah.
RA?
Yeah, that'll work, right? 2 letters.
Yeah, 10% discount raw.
All right. In the caption, check it out to get these Viva Rays at 10% off. Use code RAW. But that's just for you guys. I've looked into blue blockers for a very, very long time. I'm friends with people that own blue blocking companies, and there's just something that stood out to me about this company, and of course Roudy. You guys saw that, like, we were talking not just about his glasses the whole time. He's got so much more information on this as well, and his passion really comes out of him on this topic. And I really like that you shared this with us all. You mentioned melatonin being the darkest substance in the universe.
Melanin.
My bad. Thanks for the correction. And that's another thing that's just highly misunderstood. Melanin is not just about making you more attractive. Melanin is more attractive because we're attracted to people that have more light and life force in them. So it's not that just being tan makes you more attractive and you're more magnetic. It's actually like there's a reason for that. The same way there's a reason why men that have bigger shoulder to waist ratio are more attractive, because those men can fight, they can build houses, they can hunt better than somebody that has like the same shoulder to waist ratio. Same thing with hip to waist ratio in women. There's reasons because they can bear children healthier. There's reasons why we're attracted to things. So getting more melanin in the skin is not about just being sexier for the sake of being sexier. It's literally like we're attracted to people that have more light in them because they're healthier, they're more vibrant, they're going to be better for our offspring if we mate for them. They're going to be better for our alliances if we decide to do business with them or associate with them. And it's just such a shame. And I don't really like to use that word because I'm not trying to shove people into there, but it's as honest as I can be. It's such a shame that there's a campaign against the sun and that we are really promoting people being outside of the sun and to be pale.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sunglasses, sunscreens.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that stuff.
Like they're great friends, because if you wear sunglasses, then you need sunscreen.
Right.
And why is that? It's because sunglasses block 100% of the UV light. And it's when UV enter our eyes, it helps us to produce a molecule called propriomelanocortin, POMC, which we spoke a little bit about during our conversation yesterday. And POMC is a precursor for so many different peptides and hormones, like you name it. And I could go for hours talking about the importance of POMC and the different hormones that are derived from POMC, but one of which is alpha MCH. And alpha MCH is produced when UV light enter our eyes, and then the brain sends a signal to the skin to produce melanin. Okay, so it activates those melanocytes in the skin for melanin production, and that allows us to tan. That's true. It increases our libido. It also suppresses our desire to eat. It has been shown that when you have a disrupted alpha MCH level, you're much more likely to have to be obese and to rely a lot more on food. So when alpha MCH is regulated, you have much less likely, you have a less desire to engage with food. And you probably experience this on a full day at a beach. Right. You know, you're like soaking the sun and the day passes and you don't think about eating. And that is tied to alpha MCH. So when we put sunglasses that are blocking 100% of that UV, we are lagging propriomelanocortin, which again could become so many different things that our body needs. But one of which is we're suppressing the production of alpha MCH and melanin. And therefore, melanin is the natural compound that allow you to tan without burning. It's nature's natural sunscreen. And when you are frying yourself with sunglasses in the sun, you're not producing enough melanin, and therefore you're much more likely to burn. And then you need sunscreens.
Right. I think about melanin as a sun absorber. It's a solar cell.
It is.
And if we don't have the ability to absorb sun, then the sun's just going to fry us. It's going to over vibrate our cells and damage them. But if we have the solar cells there, then the sun has somewhere to go.
Indeed. It's like the black body radiator. And the black body radiator, one quality about it is it absorbs 100% of all frequencies of light. And the more melanin we have, the more our light storage battery is higher. So we're able to not only capture and assimilate light, but we're able to store it in our body so that our cell can use that light energy to do work, really. And one way our cells do work is when we are storing UV and infrared frequency, it actually structures the water inside and around our cell. And this water is called easy water or structured water. And it's literally when light shines on water, it creates a split in the water molecule, separating the positive and the negative charges. And when you have negative and positive charges separated, you're creating a battery, which you can literally plug into to light up a bulb, but equally for your cells to use that energy to do the work that you need to do during the day, and to clean yourself, and to trigger the production of new cells and new mitochondria in your body.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the origin of how that was even discovered. The researchers just accidentally left on a light overnight. And when they showed up in the morning, they realized that the EZ zone, the zone of that negative charge was bigger. And they were like, wait, why is this? Why is this bigger now? And then so they took that section of water away from the light and it started shrinking. And then they just kind of like accidentally discovered that light actually increases the negative charge of easy water,
Yes.
which, as Roudy I just want to highlight again, that essentially means that we are a battery. If you guys pop the hood of your car, you look at the battery, it has a negative and a positive poles. And that's essentially what we're creating in every single cell of the body.
Absolutely. And one thing about that is the way it impacts our mitochondria. And one quality about aging is tied to the respiratory proteins in the mitochondria moving apart. And every 1 angstrom increase in the distance decreases the energy yield by 10 times, literally. And what happens is when you build structured water inside and around your mitochondria, the structured water is more condensed and compressed. And that causes the respiratory protein to move closer together and increasing the energy yield by a factor of 10 to 50 times, literally. So when we lag that sunlight, the respiratory protein are much more likely to start moving apart, and it causes that aging effect or low energy level. And another very interesting thing is there's been some talks and studies about how that spike in blue light, that 455 nanometer frequency that we spoke about, actually does the opposite from what sunlight does. It dehydrates the water in our cells and in our fascia, and it causes those respiratory proteins to move further apart from each other and decreasing the energy yield in our mitochondria.
I feel that, like, especially if I'm indoors working on a computer versus if I go outside, it's my eyes start to get irritated, but it's essentially they're getting dried out. But it's just a symptom. My whole body's getting dried out.
Absolutely. And another effect that is very easy to test out, if you're somebody who's really connected with yourself, and who if you're living a lifestyle where you're getting proper sunlight, you're getting proper darkness, when you out of a sudden move to an environment that is toxic, for example, in my own experience, when I'm living in Mexico in my house, I'm like outdoors all the time. I set up my office outdoors and I take a lot of sunlight breaks. I'm swimming in the ocean all the time. The moment the sun sets, everything is dark. I go to bed shortly after the sunset. So I'm living like in rhythm. And the beauty of this is, like, people think, oh my God, like that's boring, or oh my God, like you need a lot of discipline to actually live this lifestyle. You don't need a lot of discipline. The moment you live it for 3 days, it becomes like a flowing river moving through you. It just happens. And when I go to conferences and summits in the US, oftentimes those health summits, ironically, are being held indoors under a lot of toxic junk artificial light.
Right.
And dude, after the second day, I feel like a massive shift in my body because I'm very sensitive. And how this manifests, one, I noticed that I need a lot more water, and I need to drink a lot more than I usually do when I'm in Mexico. And why is that? Because hydration is not about only drinking water. Like when you are in sunlight, you're producing easy water, and that's true hydration. And technically, when we are under blue light all the time, we are dehydrating the water inside and around the cell, and we are dehydrating the water in the fascia. And the way I do experience this when I go to these summits, after a day or two of being indoors, it's a lot harder for me to do specific martial art moves that I do oftentimes effortlessly. And why is that? I contribute this to a dehydration in the fascia and the water that constitute my fascia. And I become much less efficient at moving. It becomes a struggle. I feel like I need a lot more energy to move from point A to point B compared to when I'm in Mexico, getting that sunlight, getting that darkness, and I'm feeling that my cells are hydrated.
Amazing story. Is there anything else you'd like to add about Viva Rays? I kind of skipped through that. All this, like the whole spectrum. The Viva Rays is essentially like a portion of the spectrum of the answer.
Yes.
Right. And so it's also like a medicine. And you admit going outside is where we belong. But if we are indoors, we have this tool to use. Was there anything we didn't cover about that we should go over?
Well, I recognize that this is like a massive topic and that people needs repetition in order to digest, because all that we shared right now is going to excite you. It's pretty cool. But I bet that within a day or two, you're probably going to forget everything we said here. So in order to assimilate better learning, which ideally we want to see that learning turning into a way of being, then I recommend downloading our e-booklet on www.vivarays.com. So it's VIVARAYS. And the e-booklet is pretty short, 50 to 60 pages. And I wrote after 6 to 7 years of like deeply diving into those topics. But I had one intention in mind. I wanted to make it super simple so that I could give it to a kid that's 40 years old, and that the kid could read it and understand exactly what they need to do today to elevate their light environment to a whole new level and experience better sleep, more energy, and more focus. So I would say download this e-booklet, check it out. If you have any questions, reach out to us at support@vivarays.com. We're so open to like answering all kind of questions and connecting with you on the topic. And to wrap it up, if you rewind back about everything we discussed today, it falls within the spectrum of the yin yang, or the forces of opposite pressure interchanging imbalance. And those forces are light and darkness. And we can absorb light as much as we are soaking in darkness. And the more we are soaking in darkness, the better our capacity to absorb sunlight. So that's why you need the Viva Rays glasses as well as being outside in the sun. The combination of the two is going to produce the best result. And I see this all the time where people tell me, oh, I have very sensitive eyes to sunlight. And my number one question to them is, what kind of light are you exposed to after the sunset? And they're like, what do you mean? Like normal, right? I'm like, what's normal? Like, could you describe a little bit more? And they're like, yeah, like my bulbs and like my computer. And what they don't understand is like, during that time when you're depriving yourself from darkness, you're eliminating that period of time where your eyes clean itself from inflammation. And when inflammation stays in the eye, you're much more likely to wake up the second day and feeling that you can't get that sunlight in your eyes. It's too much. It's too painful. And then you need your sunglasses on.
That's profound.
Yeah.
That's the answer everyone's looking for when they say going into the sun is too bright. I need sunglasses.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Oh, that is so profound. I think we're going to end there. Thank you, Roudy, for sharing. And I encourage everybody to go find out more information. Go get his book. I'll put that in the caption. He's got a YouTube channel, Viva Rays on Instagram as well. And thank you for helping so many people.
Yeah, thanks for having me.